Welcome to another episode of Have Game Will Travel. I'm your host, Bennett Newsome, also known as David Bennett out in the gaming community, but as the Director of Esports Growth and Development here at Full Sail University, I'm super passionate about exploring the diverse world of esports and gaming beyond just skill levels. So whether you're a first-time listener or a returning fan, we're thrilled to have you join us for this virtual journey through the experiences of industry professionals. Get ready to engage with our guests and learn from their perspectives, and remember to put your questions in chat. We'll get them featured on the show. But sit back, enjoy the ride as we kick off another episode of Have Game Will Travel with my good buddy, Nakita. Nakita, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's always great to be here. Big fan of the show. Was checking in the last few weeks. So happy to, be on the square on the screen instead of in the chat box on the side.
I love it, man. Well, go ahead and just kind of give a quick intro of yourself to the chat here. Talk about what you do and why you're here.
Yeah. So my name is Nakita Bair. A lot of people in the collegiate esports space just know me as Bear.
Yeah.
Coined by Joey Gariziak because he claims it's easier to yell because it has less syllables. And I'm the program manager for the esports program at Syracuse University. And I could do a long-winded one of where I was beforehand. I don't know. What do you want me to do here?
We'll get into that. We'll get into all of that, but that's great. Cool. So talk to me a little bit of just kind of what sparked this for you initially. Obviously everyone in this industry has a huge passion for esports and gaming, but what really started that for you?
Yeah, I kind of follow in the similar footsteps of like Chase Newcomb, big grassroots guy originally. So got into Super Smash Brothers Melee competitively in like the mid 2010s. Yeah. It all started because a high school classmate told me his brother was going to Las Vegas to compete in a tournament for Melee. And then I pulled up the stream and it happened to be Evo. And I just like fell in love ever since. Started competing, started organizing tournaments. And when I was applying for colleges, I actually looked to see what their Smash clubs were like, if they had any presence on campus. And I kind of just all went from there, joined that club, joined the esports organizations at college, stuff like that.
I love that. Just a little tournament though, like nothing big.
Yeah,
just Evo, that's awesome. So that got your start. So Smash, and then you went to college. You took that into consideration as far as what was a place for you. And do you find that was kind of like unheard of in a lot of schools back then, or is this something that you were like, oh, this place has one, this place has one, and did that really help make your decision as far as where you were going to attend?
Yeah, I think I was really lucky because like back then it still lived on Facebook. I think a lot of like esports people don't get that nowadays, where like all of it basically lived in Facebook groups that you'd have to join. So I think I was kind of lucky with among the schools I was applying to and what I got accepted into. They had pretty active Smash communities. When I was looking at a college, I actually went to Arizona State to attend a local prior to determining if I wanted to go there or not. Ultimately, I didn't, but it was cool to see that like that presence was there. But I would say like it definitely did impact, and it was more of a rare thing. You kind of had to be lucky that the students there were really proactive. They were champions of their game and, went through the effort of being a full-time student and organizing events, getting people together on campuses.
Awesome. Talk to me about your college experience then. Was esports a big part of that, and Smash specifically?
Yeah, so I think it started freshman year. I went to Northeastern University in Boston, a really great area for collegiate Smash just because there's so many colleges. I think within like a 5-mile radius, we had double-digit number of colleges and universities that had some form of a Smash presence. So like there'd be a weekly at Northeastern, there'd be a weekly at BU, there'd be a weekly at Boston College, and you could just, everyone travel together on the public transport to go there. So you had a really good group of people that you met, which is, I think, really important for me. Because I moved from California all the way to Boston, didn't really know that many people. So I instantly had a community. And beyond that, I then found out we had an esports program, joined that. And I joined at a pretty lucky time. So Northeastern, like one of the weird trivia facts that a lot of like the newer Rocket League players don't know is that they actually won the first CRL championship. And we were actually able to use that a lot to appeal to club sports department, appeal to the AD to see, here is esports. We're winning national championships. Can we get some form of legitimacy, some form of support? Yeah. And so we were able to become not just a student organization on campus, but a club sport. And then we were able to leverage that club sport performance into a varsity sport. So we were actually the first varsity program in all of New England.
That's incredible. Yeah. And to be able to leverage that win, I mean, that's got to be a huge thing. There's a couple schools I can think of that have incredible teams, but no support. And, winning something like that could potentially be the thing that puts them, into that new kind of varsity model, right? What went along kind of that path of like convincing, the administration at the school that, hey, this is a big deal. We've won this huge award. It's won this huge tournament. Like what kind of went into convincing them that esports should be something they support?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was we were lucky in our circumstances that we had some champions in the club sports department themselves.
Yeah.
So the director of club sports, I think, understood that esports was a trend that was occurring in the 2010s, and that, hey, maybe if we take advantage of this, make it a varsity sport, we could be one of the first to do this and gain some notoriety from it. But it really was just like trying to make it as black and white as possible, where there is collegiate structure for this. This is the game. This is something that is acceptable. Like we had a really big issue with some of the first-person shooters. So we had a fantastic Counter-Strike team while we were there. But that was just one of the things we knew that wasn't going to be a hill we died on.
Right.
Because we knew if any bad mistake, if we tried to lump in League of Legends and Rocket League and Hearthstone, and then we included Counter-Strike, it was probably going to be one big yes or one big no.
Right.
And like that was really the toughest one, picking what games to do. So when we did initially launch varsity, I believe the titles were just Rocket League, League of Legends, Overwatch, Hearthstone, and that might have been the original ones. And so with that, it was like you kind of have to pick something that makes sense and is kind of easy to understand. And I think the fact that it was Rocket League is so nice because that's the easiest esport for anyone to understand, especially if you're in traditional sports. Like our AD understood what happened. Oh, they're driving a car, the ball goes into the net. It's just soccer with cars. Like that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think it was the willingness for them to talk to us. And I think they respected the fact that we as a community wanted to talk to them, put in the effort to schedule meetings with their assistants, came prepared, didn't just walk into a meeting, empty handed, like make us varsity. We won stuff.
Right.
We put in some effort behind it. And I think they respected the effort that was put behind it.
Yeah. And that's a huge thing. Like there's a lot of times that we'll talk to students and they just say, hey, we're going to do this. Okay, cool. Like let's get all the stuff together. So let's work towards that presentation of here's what we're trying to do. Because that really goes a long way when there's initiative behind it. Right.
Yeah, we see that a lot too, where like new titles come up. Valorant was like a really interesting one in that COVID era where we just launched a varsity program. Then Valorant drops, and then we have like a top 32 or a top 16 team in the country, and they're instantly like, "Why do we have to be a club sport? Why can't we be a varsity sport?" And it was that process that you set up from the beginning, where okay, these are going to be the initial pilot titles, but if a new title comes up or if an existing title has a case, they can make it on a semesterly basis following, this process and this order. And that ended up happening. Valorant is a varsity sport at Northeastern.
Nice. So what led you from obviously playing in, the collegiate space to wanting to, pursue a career in education and esports and combine the two?
Yeah, I see Eugenia in the chat. I follow a pretty similar path to her. Education in Boston. I was a traditional econ finance major with an international affairs minor. Not really a lot of connections there to the esports world or the education world. And at Northeastern, there was a really cool thing called a co-op program where you would work full-time for a full semester and then return to school afterwards. So you can kind of figure out if that career path you think you want is really for you or not. And I'm happy I did that because I was an accountant at Goldman, or not Goldman. I wish I was at Goldman, at Gorton Seafood. So the fish stick company, they make the Filet-O-Fish for McDonald's.
Okay.
I was up in Gloucester, Massachusetts every day. And like that life was just not for me. Financial accounting, financial reporting, a lot of the books, looking at a lot of paper. It wasn't for me. And so I was happy that I was able to learn that in my third year of college. And so when I was looking to graduate the next year, I knew maybe I should pivot in some capacity. And I saw the way the collegiate esports space was developing. We recently had a new director. They came from Wichita State, where they had a very similar path where, they were a grad student and then became a director, got their master's. So I kind of saw if I wanted to work in the higher ed space, I probably should get a master's because it'll be a pretty safe, floor for me to have in job interviews or when I'm looking at other places. And my director there referred me to a few grad assistant positions, saw the one down at Shenandoah University, talked to Joey, talked to the dean of the school there, and then everything kind of fell in place. Ended up being a GA there, ended up getting a full-time job teaching there, and then that kind of led me to jump over to Syracuse in the last year.
Yeah, it's an incredible journey, and obviously, now at Syracuse, you have a huge impact on what's going on for students, and talk to us a little bit about your role at Syracuse University.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so happy that my title isn't what my title is at a lot of other institutions, because I think if you hear program manager, it's like similar to a coordinator or a director role where everything is, underneath you, your responsibilities. I'm lucky that I really only sit on the academic side of the program. So at Syracuse, we do have a academic major that just launched this fall. So we have our first cohort of first years for that degree path. And I help them along the way. So a lot of it is internship, professional development, any study or travel abroad, and kind of the relationships that go with that. And so we have a really cool trip coming up in almost like a month exactly with I think we have 3 of our esports majors and a couple students who take esports courses and are involved in the program on the side. And we're actually going to go to Berlin for League of Legends Worlds. And so we're going to be able to, go behind the scenes. A lot of these students are interested in broadcast production and event management. And so they'll be able to see one of the largest events in the world in the industry and kind of see, okay, I see what they're doing, in the professional level. I know if I want to do this or not. So it's not as robust as like this co-op opportunity I had in undergrad, but it's still something to let them see for sure if that's something they want to work in and, know what they're working towards. So a lot of it's like that. A lot of the day-to-day is just working with the students in person. We are kind of like a hydra. I think our staff is like, we have many heads, but we're all a part of the same body. So if Joey needs some help in a meeting or, if Sean needs me to do something on the prod side, get some of these names, see what these players are doing, helping Travis out. So a lot of it really is just, okay, I have these, specific things I have to do, a lot of meetings, a lot of, okay, we're going to go see if we can set up a 2-2 program with this community college in the local area. Can you look at the curriculum? So it's really all over the place, but I do have a little bit of a focus on the academic side.
I love that. And obviously, Jackie's here in the chat saying she'll chaperone. I will also happily chaperone the Berlin trip if needed. But that sounds incredible. Going to an event like that, especially a huge event, and letting your students actually see, and peek behind the curtain, see what happens, is such an enlightening experience for students to really see. I mean, you yourself obviously had an experience with the fillet of fish folks and said, hey, man, you know what? It's not for me. Hopefully your people will be like, yo, this is for me and this is what I want to do. But, such a great opportunity to, really go out there, see it firsthand. And that's definitely going to be a memory for those students that will last a lifetime, which is really cool. So kudos to that.
Yeah, I think with that too, that's like my favorite thing I've learned throughout the last 4 or so years of being at a administrative level in collegiate esports programs is where these first and second year students, a lot of them think that they're going to become professional gamers, and some do become professional esports athletes, but a lot of them have that idea that they will do that. And then they go and experience something, they work an event or they go travel. And then they realize, oh, I actually don't want to compete at all. I just want to work in this industry in this specific role. I think Ian Burnett from Shenandoah is my favorite one, because he was a Rocket League grinder, one of the best players on the team, and then went on a trip to the Netherlands to see the Benelux region's League of Legends playoffs and saw the back end of the production for that, and then immediately got back from that trip, stopped competing on Rocket League, and signed up to work with Sean the next day on production. And as we see where that went, he got a full-time career out of that, doing production. I think recently was at least nominated for awards. I don't remember if he did take home the trophy, but is one of the most respected broadcast directors in the country in the collegiate esports.
And like you said, I mean, just being able to see it really opens doors and eyes. Like you may not know what you want to do until it smacks you in the face, right? And that is such a cool experience. Yourself, I mean, talking about broadcast, you have kind of a little side hustle as an esports commentator. Talk to me a little bit about casting.
Yeah, so casting is always like always a fun one for me. So I used to be not just a competitor for Smash in undergrad, but I also did compete on one of the lower level League of Legends teams.
Okay.
And through that, kind of learned a lot about League of Legends. I was in a fraternity, and my freshman year actually put me on to League of Legends and kind of ruined my life in a way, and kind of forced me down the path where I'm at now. And I learned a lot about League of Legends and got the opportunity because our varsity team for League of Legends at the time was like top 32 CLOL talent. So it was kind of a wasted opportunity if they weren't broadcasting the games and covering the games. And so me and a first-year student who signed up were the commentators for League of Legends because we were the only two who signed up. And it kind of started there. And then in the last couple of years at Shenandoah, I feel like I was kind of the Swiss Army knife paired with like Xander, where it's like, hey, we need people to cover this game for this event. Can you do it? So through Shenandoah, I believe let me think of all the games. I've done Fortnite, I've done Smash Ultimate, I've done Rocket League, I've done League of Legends. Almost did Dead by Daylight.
Okay.
Barely got off that one. I was behind the scenes on that one. And then like a couple games like that, we might have done something with Killer Queen. And so that kind of got me back into it because I really was only doing it on like a semesterly basis.
Right.
And then with that, we were working with Supernova, previously known as Super Smash Con, one of the largest Smash tournaments a few years ago. And with the guys out there, they gave me the opportunity to hop back on the microphone for Melee. I used to do a lot of like the locals commentary for the tournaments at Northeastern. Shout out to the Scone Fest. That was our little tournament. And hopped on the comms at SmashCon a couple years ago. And I kind of just have been back in Melee commentary ever since. It's super fun. It keeps me engaged. And like, it keeps me a part of a community that I feel gave a lot to me. So I always like going to travel to these events, commentate, help out where I can.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have like a favorite memorable experience from casting any of these events?
Oh, memorable experience from commentary. I mean, it might be my most recent one.
Okay.
At Supernova 2024, recently, one of the biggest upsets. I mean, if we have any Smash heads in the chat, they'll get it. But recently, a character basically known as like a lower mid-tier, someone took them to top 4 at a super major, which has never happened before for that character. So Donkey Kong made it to top 4 at a Melee tournament at that capacity has never happened before. And I was able to commentate one of the upsets on that path. And it was kind of cool too, because the day before we saw that player like specifically labbing this matchup. So being able to bring that like knowledge to the desk. So everyone at home who wasn't at the tournament knew that this person was labbing that out, and just being a part of that was really cool. Otherwise, I think it's just the friends you make. Like I've made some pretty lifelong friends just from coincidentally being placed on a commentary block with them. Like literally it might've switched the day before. Oh, I'm with Jorge now. Never worked with him before. And now really good friends with Jorge. So
what sort of skills do you think that, there's a lot of students out there that are like, kind of like, hey, this sounds fun. I think this could be a cool thing for me to do. What sort of skills do you feel like, you kind of help continue to build as a commentator and just jumping into the seat, and what maybe could encourage those students to like, hey, go try it out. See how it goes.
I think a lot of it is being receptive, but I think it's kind of similar. You probably experience this with a lot of your students too, talking about content creation, is being receptive, but being receptive for the right individuals. I don't think you should be looking at your YouTube comments on sets you cover and seeing what people are saying about your commentary there.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is find some peers or find some people in the space that you highly respect and just talk to them. A lot of people who commentate are totally happy to share some tips to just increase the talent pool in general. So I've been very appreciative of my mentors in the space, just talking to them. And I think it's, taking the risk of actually talking to someone who might seem a little bit scary once you're up and coming, where I've seen that person on Twitch streams for the last 10 years. Now I'm one of their like coworkers and one of their peers, but you kind of have like that weird fan experience. I think it's really important to break through that, because they're, again, just another human being like you trying to get better at their craft. And with that as well, I think just practicing, like, you could turn a lot of what you do regularly into practice for commentary. What I like to tell a lot of my esports students who are interested in commentary, if they like sports, like listen to the sports radio and find mistakes for commentators and how they get past them. because like sports radio is one of the hardest things to do. How are you visualizing a football game or a baseball game to someone driving in a car?
Yep.
And especially a lot of the students at Shenandoah, very sports focused. So if you're going to watch or listen to the game anyways, you might as well be practicing your craft. So I think it's the ability to continue to like want to improve. That drive is really important, because I think complacency is one of like the biggest downfalls of commentary in the esports space, where I've been doing it for a while, I don't really need to practice.
Right. Yep. Got to be on your game. Yeah, I definitely like the sports radio. I always tell people, like, find a hockey team that you like and listen to their radio broadcast, and it's going a mile a minute, you know, like it's crazy. So you got to like really focus in on what's going on, and that has really helped a lot of people down the road, which has been cool. So we do have some questions from chat that I want to shout out here. Lugnuts asks, what advice you give this next generation graduating and trying to get an esports job?
Yeah, I think for this next generation, it's trying to focus on your professional development, your experiences, and kind of leveraging them to future hiring managers. And so I think as we're getting into the space, a lot more and more people will have like specific esports degrees or esports courses or esports minors or certificates. So the novelty of that, I think, is wearing off. So it really is what is within the content of your time at that university. I'll keep using Shenandoah as an example because it's easy for me to do and I can make fun of them. So if a student has a degree from there, but they don't have any experience listed underneath, it makes more sense for someone who doesn't even have an esports degree, but maybe worked at Esports Engine, went to DreamHack Atlanta and worked the front desk. Like some of those experiences, I think you really have to highlight. Yeah. And a lot of it is making sure you write it down and track it as you go along. I think throughout my last 6 years or so of being a student, I probably ran over 100 events. And if I didn't take the time to update my resume or my CV, every quarter at least, like a lot of those would just get lost to time. Yep. But some of them have been really important talking pieces in job interviews. So I think it's putting yourself out there, taking advantage of opportunities. It might seem like you might be, I think Makaya handled it perfectly where he entered Shenandoah, super shy, said I would never be able to be on a show like this, but listen to Joey's advice of you need to put yourself out there, you need to network, and was then doing keynote speakers series for something in Georgia, I think. Yep. So the adjustment you can make in 4 years, if you really put your mind to it, and if you're really determined to get that job, I think you can make something happen. But I also think it's like test a lot of stuff. If you know you want to work in esports, but don't really know where, like ask if you have a broadcast production capability at your university to like shadow them. Yeah. Maybe you observe for a couple weeks, see if you like it or not. Try to commentate. Maybe you suck. Maybe you're really good. Yeah. But at least you're trying. And it's not really just like trying and failing and nothing happens from it. You can try and fail and use that failure to build on to something else. So.
Absolutely. We've got a second question here. Comes from Jacob is Nachos. It says 2 questions. What's the most rewarding part of your current job? And does Joey make you wear orange pants? And hey, dudes.
I'll answer the Joey question first. He does not make us wear orange pants and hey, dudes. We are working on trying to get Syracuse hey, dudes, though. So okay. I think if those are in the future, those might be on my feet in the near future. The orange pants, orange pants are... They look a little rough on Joey, so they might be heading like mine or Travis's way soon if they continue to look the same way. But no, I currently don't have any. Me and Travis do wear like the same T-shirts. I think we have 3 or 2 of the same Syracuse T-shirts. So if we're wearing them on the same day, like we have so many of the same clothes between all of us. Like me and Travis will walk into the office wearing the same stuff, and then Joey and Sean will walk in wearing like the same polo. And it's like we all could have like just desynced by one day and it'd be totally fine. What's the most rewarding part of my current job? I think currently the most rewarding part is I think the opportunity that is provided by the support of the university. So at Syracuse, we are backed by the chancellor. So esports as an initiative is a chancellor-led initiative. The deans of the 2 colleges we're under are very supportive of it. And I think with that gives a lot more opportunity, which allows us to give a lot more opportunity for our students. Yeah. So even though we didn't have an academic major until this year, we were still traveling over the summer and over the spring to bring students out to places. So we did help run Boost on the Beach again, brought some students out there. We went to a LAN in Rochester, had some content students out there. We visited yours truly, Bennett, in Full Sail for the grand finals of NACE and brought some students down there to compete, but also capture content. Thanks to Syracuse University of Kentucky, we were able to bring like a literal caravan of students down there to the campus takeover event. And that's just a few of the opportunities we had just because the university was in support of it even before we launched year one.
Yeah.
So I think that's been like a really cool experience where previously at like Northeastern, we would have to like really sit down and say, okay, maybe we go to one event a year and we have to make a very big proposal for this and pitch this, where we're just like, hey, can we go to this? And then they're just like, yeah, that makes sense. Like get the name out, get the brand out, give those students some experiences. That'll really be worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, when you have the backing like that, it really goes a long way. And, you know, hopefully as time goes on, you guys, us down here in Florida can try to help spread the word of like, hey, this is what we need to do to help you get this type of backing, right? Because that buy-in really goes far.
Yeah, and I think tying back to like what students can do to get employed, but also like current directors in the space, like Joey's door is fully open. If there's any director or coach or someone who's looking to work in collegiate esports has a question, like Joey is totally happy to hop on a call and, you know, give some guidance if need be. But also, like if you are a commentator in the space, Doc Haskell from Boise State will happily sit down with you and give you some tips. That's like one of his favorite things to do. And I know it's like kind of scary. You see like Doc's Twitter follower account, you see a scary profile picture. These people love talking about the industry that they work in because they get to work in an industry they love every single day. So really a lot of these people who might seem like, you know, big, giant, scary people, please like just talk to them. All of them are really nice.
Worst thing they're going to say is no, you know, or like, hey, maybe next week, you know, like that's always I think that like vulnerable state is like, oh, man, but I don't want to ask because they seem scary, or they're going to say no. Why would they talk to me? Like, in most of the time, and especially on this show, if you go back and watch any of the episodes, a lot of times people got their gig that they're doing just because they're like, hey, I'm going to try this. Let me reach out to this person. And I'm going to throw my hat in there, see what happens. And it worked out. You know what I mean? So, like, don't be afraid to ask those questions. Great point. Kind of jumping back to something that you said earlier. You mentioned like getting complacent as a caster and like you just kind of go, oh, I'm gonna wing it. And we'll see how it goes. Like, how do you approach and what would you tell other students to prepare for a major event or tournament that they're going to accommodate? What sort of things should they be thinking about preparing for as they lead up to an event?
Yeah, I think Smash and Melee in particular is so interesting because there isn't really any true identity. I think depending on the duo, you might have traditional play-by-play and color, but I think a lot of the time it really is blended. It might be more of like what I've seen is dynamics. Yeah. So you might have someone who's more of a low volume and more of a high volume, but the content you're talking about switches between. So I think really there's just general knowledge is really good to focus on beforehand. I think, a little bit more anal about my preparation. So I'm a Google Sheets, Excel guy. I get a big sheet. SmashCon and Supernova is usually where I prep the most because it's right near that like halfway mark of the year, and the top 50 rankings coincidentally drop the day before the tournament. So I'm up like the night before looking at the top 50, seeing what matchups there are, what previous tournaments there are. So I really just try to find like, okay, I know these players are here. They're probably going to make a significantly long run. What's some of their history? Who are they looking to run into? Kind of some stuff like that. And then I also think I am very lucky. I commentate in a game I compete in still, so I still play Smash. And so while I'm learning as a player, I can take a lot of that like frame data or that specific character nuance into my commentary. When it comes to like League of Legends, which is probably my second best title I commentate outside of the Smash scene, a lot of it is meta-analysis. Yeah. So I like to look at what professional teams are drafting, how are drafts going. I'm more of a analyst and play-by-play, not really much of the color inside of the game. And so a lot of it is studying when new characters come out. Like if there's a new champion, I kind of need to learn what they do. Otherwise, I might be stuck there, confused as Chad is confused as well. But yeah, I don't think you really need to sweat it. I'm also a fan of notebooks, especially at like long-term LAN events, just having a piece of paper in front of me that I could take notes down on. If you're more of an interviewer, if you really like talking to the players to get those outside of the game storylines, especially at a LAN event, it's so easy to grab a team at like the high school or the college level, maybe even talk to the coach or the sub and just be like, hey, can you give me a few things that you're worried about, what you're looking forward to,
Yeah.
what's your favorite thing about this LAN event. And you could just bring that into the story while you're commentating. And I think it like just brings another level of depth to it. So you kind of make a lot of these players who, you know, they're just sitting a lot of the time behind a screen or sitting in front of like a big CRT. You kind of personify them a little bit more, which I think is always nice because a lot of people don't really see the human aspect of video games if they're just watching at home. They just see a little screen in front of them.
Yep. Yeah, storylines are always the best. You know, maybe there's some drama there. Maybe it's just, hey, they've gotten here, that this is the journey they've been on to get here. It's always cool to hear, and gives it a little bit more personal of a touch, right?
Yeah, I also think I like looking good. I think it makes me feel better. Like one of the biggest things I worry about is what I'm going to wear. But I also think it helps me like not worry about the nerves of actually being up there. If I'm like, okay, for the week ahead of time, ooh, what outfit am I going to wear? But I also kind of think that's where esports is heading a lot, where I've noticed year over year, a lot more of these players are like kind of swagged out. They're wearing some nice clothes. So I like to use that as well. If I look nice, I feel nice. And if I feel nice, I probably commentate a little nicer.
Yeah, it gives you a little bit more confidence, right?
Yep.
So let's jump in the rewind machine here. Talk to me a little bit about your time at Shenandoah and what you were doing there, because you've had a couple different roles during your time there.
Yeah, so I started initially as just a grad assistant, working directly underneath Joey, and I was the first full-time grad assistant for the esports program, and that was through working with the associate dean at the time, Michael Magro, someone I pay a lot of respect to because of the help that he gave me and the guidance he gave me while I was at Shenandoah. And so with that, did a lot of tournament operation. The first couple of months were really interesting because we just got approved for our varsity room. So I was actually like doing some engineering. I was like looking up free floor planning space and like planning out how many PCs and what desk width we need, what chairs we need to set that up. That was one of my first big goals. But then a lot of it was just tournament organizing, tournament and event running. That's where we really brought on a lot of our consistent programming with the MIEC LAN, with the Virginia High School League LAN. And then that kind of led to, I think, Sean really stepping into gear as well, because he could focus solely on broadcast production and I would focus solely on events. And then throughout that, we were successful enough, I think, that the university was like, oh, we could put a little bit more support behind this. Like this team actually, you know, is pretty promising. We're able to get approved for a new faculty position. We hired Xander, Merle Smith, and then we're able to bring on someone solely for competition. And that's where Alyssa came as well after that first year. And then I finished out my grad assistantship. Roles were kind of all over the place. I was really the money guy because of my background.
Right.
Worked a lot with Chris Scroggins and Zach Harrington as well with Edge Consulting. So I did some financial work for them, help them build out like their P&L. And then for a part of the grad program, there was a capstone course, and I was able to fulfill that through working with the Washington Justice and Grant Paranjape. So I got a little bit of that professional Overwatch League experience, which I think was really interesting from my case with the advice I gave of figure out what you want to work in. If you know it's not going to be your career or your full-time job, I might actually advise you to take a position that is in the industry you want, but definitely not like the game or the league you're interested in, so you can actually figure out if you like the work. Because working with in the Overwatch League, I am not an Overwatch guy. I'm a Washington Justice fan solely because of working there.
Yeah.
But I did not care for doing social media management. But I was able to actually I basically stripped down the job to what it is. It took away a lot of the glitter behind it. Where maybe if it was working at Beyond the Summit Smash or working at Gen G for League of Legends, I might have been a little bit more, oh, this work is so good because I get to see Chovy walk through the facility. It's a little bit different. So I think if you do have an opportunity to intern somewhere through your university that is maybe in a game you don't like or in a league you don't like, but it's a position you think you might want, that might actually be really valuable. So I did that internship for a few months, I think 4 or 5 months. It was a really great experience. And then ultimately graduated. But throughout that time, thanks to Michael Magro, I was able to start teaching a few courses on an adjunct basis because I earned enough graduate credits that I could teach undergrad. So I actually started teaching information systems and like depending on university to university, they changed the naming structure, but I was really teaching like Microsoft Office for freshmen and business students. So we'd go through Excel throughout like 12 weeks or so.
Yeah.
Talk about Google Suite as well, or the package there. Talk about some new emerging technology. Talk about how computers, networks, infrastructure works, and then was able to then continue teaching that and add in some esports courses. So I taught governance and structure. Helped Grant when he was teaching consumerism, helped out Scroggins when he was teaching event management as well. So had some experience doing that. And then after I graduated, was brought on as a full-time faculty, and I had some of my course load bought out to help with the operational side of things, help with budgeting, help with event management, planning, and stuff like that.
Yeah, you had your hands in almost all
a lot
aspects.
of cookie jars.
Yeah, man, that's really cool though. But I think it goes to what you're saying about like figuring out what it is that you want to do, right? Like being a part of the Washington Justice like gave you some insight into that. And hey, I don't want to do this. Like, would you say that any of those skills that you learned and were working on as a social media manager in that role have carried over and you've been brought with you into other things that you are now doing?
Yeah, so I think from the social media side of things, you kind of learn, and that was just a part of my job. I think that internship was actually very similar to my role as a grad assistant, where like almost a lot of different pieces fell underneath me. I did some sales, I did some marketing,
Right.
I did a lot of business dev as well. But from the social media side, I think you learn a lot of what just goes into each operation. So I was just a part of a team that I would have to watch the matches live and then capture highlights, take timestamps so then I could send it over to the person who's actually tweeting to then tweet them out.
Right.
Washington Justice was also a really interesting time because the roster I was working with was one that was fully Korean. So our social media manager actually had to put out content in English for the Western market and in Korean for the Eastern market.
Oh, wow.
So that was really cool to see the behind the scenes on. And like seeing this media piece really works in the Western side, but this media piece that we didn't think would actually take off actually took off a lot in the Korean and the Chinese market. So that was really cool to see. I also just think like that position, kind of due to the title being all over the place as well and the roles, is you kind of learn you wear a lot of hats. You kind of got to just, act out of your own thoughts sometimes where it's, okay, this was put in front of me. I can solve it this way, or maybe, how did this person solve this when they were tackling it this way? I do think I took some skills from that, even though I might not have wanted that to be my full-time career.
Yeah. And I like that, the kind of wearing the hats, like I think everybody that works, in the collegiate space and probably in the pro space is you're used to wearing a lot of hats, right? You're used to having to do and be knowledgeable about all of these different areas. And so the fact that you have been able to bounce around from different areas and cover different things has been really powerful for you to kind of put a lot of new things in your tool belt. You even had coaching, right? Like you coached high school and collegiate League of Legends teams. Is that correct?
Yeah. So that was at 2 universities now. So I really started at Northeastern. I tried out for one of the varsity teams, and the varsity coach, who was one of my close friends, cut me from the team. But while he was giving me the cut announcement, was like, I think we have enough talent here that we could actually run a pretty competitive JV team, but they need a coach, and I want you to be the coach. And that's where I kind of stepped up. Really proud of that first roster I ever coached. Probably because we actually had a lot of speed bumps, a lot of road bumps throughout the year. It wasn't perfect in any capacity. We had really talented players. But again, when you have a lot of really talented players during the COVID era of like college and esports, a lot of these kids really haven't had like teamwork or any form of like team gameplay face to face or, person to person ever, because a lot of these League of Legends players never played a traditional sport because they'd go home and get so good at the game and play solo queue or duo queue. And this is their first real team environment. So I was really happy that we were able to all grow together. And we were the best team in the regular season. We kind of fell apart in the playoffs, but we were still the best team in the regular season for whatever conference that was, like one of the old star leagues back in the day. And then one of my friends on the varsity team's little brother was in high school playing League of Legends at Newsome High School. So I actually helped coach them, which I thought was really interesting because, kind of similar to like how we think of collegiate being so different from pro in some titles. High school is a whole different ballpark where if you have one really good player, like if you build around that player on that team, like you might be able to just win solely off one person being challenger and the rest being platinum or diamond or gold. So that learning about the different dynamics and just trying to improve them with a lot of their soft skills, communication is really good. I really focus on active listening. Oh yeah, I know they said that, but like, are you thinking about why they said that or why they're saying it right now? And a big thing I like to push is egoless VOD review, which I stole from that varsity League of Legends coach because he was a computer science major and now does some back-end coding for his career. Learned egoless code review, where you separate yourself from the product of your coding, where it's similar in esports, where I like to have teams separate themselves from their gameplay so they can actually reflect and not take any offense when their teammate says, why did you do this? Or I think this was a bad idea. It's not a slight on the individual. It's a slight on their gameplay in a constructive manner so they can improve going forward.
Yeah, I love that.
Love coaching. I was able to coach at Shenandoah as well. I actually played. I still had some eligibility, so I did play a season or two for Shenandoah, but then I did coach the League of Legends team there and liked the bunch of kids we had there. It was a fun group.
That's awesome. Would you say that like your time coaching has helped influence how you approach like esports management?
That's an interesting question. I think management of student staff for sure, because I think I'm able to take a step back and understand that like this is, especially with the COVID era. The COVID era is so interesting when these students almost had 24 full months of remote or like hybrid schooling during very important developmental years. And so like I think I have the ability to take a step back where maybe a few years ago prior to coaching or when I was a college student, I'm like, why is this person doing this? Or why are they approaching it this way? Or why are they saying these things? A lot of it is, okay, now I can take a step back, think about it, and kind of separate a lot of the time. I feel like students just might have an issue communicating what they're trying to say effectively. And so trying to take the step back, think about where they're coming from, talk with them. I love just talking with students and walking them through it because a lot of the time they'll get to the same end goal if there's a conflict or a problem that they have where they just think about it and talk it out. They'll actually like, oh, okay, this actually makes sense now. So I like that aspect. I think from like a different side, I don't know if I could extrapolate a lot more of my coaching to like my day-to-day job outside of the way that like a coach interacts with students or other people who work under them.
But I like to hear the especially the COVID time. I think we all kind of have that same mindset. It really kind of changed perspectives on like, hey, this is their whole experience. Some people went completely online for their entire degree, right? And so, having that compassion is good. I did learn something in this next question from chat though that I did not find in my research. It says Eugenia says, "What is something that you learned from water polo that you applied to esports?"
Big water polo guy. Okay. Actually, I am not traveling to Hugh this weekend because I'm coaching the Syracuse men's team. And we have a tournament at RPI this weekend. So I'll be in Troy, New York this weekend for that. Big water polo fan. Played since like freshman year of high school. So probably more than 10 years. We actually just recently played in a lake tournament, I believe in Lake Ontario a month ago, scored a goal in my mid-20s. Didn't think that would happen, but did that. What is something I learned from water polo that applied to esports? That is really interesting. I think this is something that I guess I could also extrapolate from my coaching, which I just didn't in the previous question, which is you don't have to be the best player to have a very valid and good opinion on the game or on a play or on the work environment or how you do something. But I think a lot of that does come with students where students actually have a lot of great ideas because as much as we like to say we always like to improve, sometimes, once you're a full-time staff, you think you've done the same event, 10 times or so and you do it the same way. And a student's like, why don't we do it this way? And I think having the ability to be like, oh, maybe that actually is a valid way to do something rather than just being like, no, I've done this 10 times already. And it kind of lines in with the egoless VOD review thing where even the worst player skill wise, if you're looking at League of Legends, like they might be bronze or silver or gold talking to a challenger player, but they still might have a way that they view the game, which could be objectively correct or objectively better in a certain situation. Especially with like my League of Legends team, we had a top like 100 HOTS player on the roster who like never touched League of Legends before, but they were so good at HOTS that their macro was so good, and the way that they thought about the game would just contribute so much during VOD review and during like team comp and analysis conversations. What else do I got for water polo? I mean, me, myself, I think it just develops my personality. Like I was a goalie, and I feel like just throwing yourself into the cage and like just taking shots to the face, like it's kind of similar to me just being like, hey, can you commentate? I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I'll commentate. Like, that's fine. Like, yeah. So I guess it's more of the thought behind the position that I played, the willingness to just get into it. Yeah, and I guess it's also another niche sport I like because I like watching esports and I like watching water polo.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite Olympic sports to watch.
Yeah, I definitely watched way more water polo than I expected to this year in the Olympics.
Yeah, who was it? Flava Flav, I think, was sponsoring the teams. Yeah,
did not expect that, but hey, you know what? Here we are. So, yeah, but I like what you said that too. Like, you don't have to be like, it kind of tied it back to the coaching thing. Like, you don't have to be the best player on the team to have a meaningful opinion, right? Like that's a huge thing, and like kind of getting like leaving the ego at the door and like separating that part of the game and breaking down like what's happening, what you know, what's going on there. That's a huge deal. So like I really appreciate that kind of perspective there, because it's not always easy to you know, especially if you've never been coached before as a player, or you're new to esports, and just, you know, a thing that we heard in the early days was like, why should I listen to you? You know, like, yep. I'm here playing the game. You're not, you know, like, and that's tough, you know? So I would love to get your 2 cents on just kind of how you can encourage more students to separate that, you know, that ego and that kind of putting those things to the side, how that process, you know, goes as a coach in those situations.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is having designated just like speaking times with your team, especially if there's like seemingly conflict between one player and another. And I think a lot of the times in my experience, it is between someone of a higher objective skill level in terms of rankings, where it might be that challenger player and that gold player who are constantly bashing heads in either VOD review or post game or mid game. I think it's coming to agreements with them in the same call. Like, I would love to hop into a call with, you know, the 2 people who are butting heads and really just hash it out. Because I think if they're able to understand that the other person is a person like them, that the way that they'll approach it is very different. And I think for a lot of the first year players, it really is just literally learning your teammates are very similar to yourself. And then there are other people trying to compete and win alongside you, and kind of learning about how that works. I also was very transparent in my coaching of, I was relatively new. Like, I know I'm not perfect. I know you're not perfect. So if I'm going to take the time to talk with you, like through your problems, please talk about them, like with me, help construct, like give me criticism. So I would always have midterm meetings each semester and semesterly meetings, and would provide anonymous feedback forms for them to feedback on my craft and say, I didn't really like this. I thought this was unfair. I thought this is going well. So then I could change what I'm doing throughout the next semester. So, or maybe midway through the season. So the students will actively see me working towards improvement. So ideally they will do the same as well. Because I think there have been issues where teams think that and it might be true, where they're putting in more effort than their coach is putting in for them. And that kind of feels a little bit cruddy from a student athlete perspective. So I try to give what I take and try to take what I give.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm sure the students respect that and see that, and, can identify that, hey, this guy's trying, you know what I mean? Like I think that's a big deal when you see the effort, from anything, whether it's a coach or a coworker, like when you see the effort that someone's trying to, like, okay, I'm trying to understand, or I'm making myself available to like step away from whatever the situation is and try, like, that's a huge deal.
I think a lot of it is just like that baseline level of respect too.
Yeah.
Where it's almost going back to Eugenia's question of what I took from water polo or what I took from traditional sports and applied to esports. It's almost like I took what I didn't like and changed it for the better in my experiences with like coaching in esports, where I think almost everyone who's from a traditional sports background probably has that one or two coaches who are super mean, didn't really, have that line of respect, maybe took things to a personal level,
Yeah.
only cared about winning at the detriment of the player's health or something like that. And so I had a few experiences like that, and I really wanted to not be one of those coaches in their
Yeah.
memories. Yeah.
Yeah, like that. You're like a wealth of knowledge. Obviously, you've been through a lot of different avenues that have kind of made you super well rounded. When you came down to Full Sail for the NACE National Convention, you got to be part of hosting a panel and speak. Talk to us a little bit about the esports event management and the key takeaways from your session.
Yeah, that session was really cool. So I think I think we titled it Event Management Best Practices, and it was me and Chase,
Yep.
Chase Newcomb. I think that was like one of his debuts as, I don't even know if he was Shenandoah yet. I think it might have been the announcement or something like that. It was pretty
right
close.
Before it. It's close for sure.
Yeah. And so we were able to talk about that. I think, interestingly enough, me and Chase have never collaborated on an event before in our collegiate or Smash experiences until now, working on Boost on the Beach together. Keep it secret. But yeah, and so we were able to collaborate together and talk about kind of the both of our sides, where I think despite organizing events very similarly, we kind of focus on different things. So I'm very big on like having a backup plan. Contingency planning is a really key part. So if this falls apart, what are we going to do? If this is something that can't fall apart, how do we ensure that that doesn't happen? Talking about maybe like time constraints in the venue. We have to be in and out by these times. Maybe we only have 6 computers. How do we run this event? Right. What formatting do we use? And with that formatting, that's what else I focused on, was talking about how do you make your bracket? How do you structure your event? But yeah, that was a really cool panel. I'm happy that I was given the opportunity to talk about it. I learned that Chase can talk a lot if you let him talk a lot by himself. So I know next time to maybe interject with him and not split up the panel that way, because he could dominate the microphone if he wants to. But yeah, it was a great experience. The room was basically full. I was happy I was able to do it in like on the stage.
Yeah.
It was super full. Like the lighting was cool too. So that was really nice. But yeah, I always love the NACE National Convention. I think there's always a couple cool panels that if you just happen to walk in on that one instead of the other one, you really like enjoy and learn something. I think that's always the case that I've had, where the last 3 or 4 years I've always walked away from the convention being like, I'm happy I went to that specific panel. And a lot of the times I think they're just something that I just happened to sit on because there was programming.
Yeah.
So I think that's something too, where you can always learn something from something maybe you're not even expecting to gain any knowledge from, where I just sat down maybe because it was like right after lunch and I knew this one was booked and I was waiting for this one.
Right.
And it ended up being one of my favorite panels.
Yeah. I'm always a fan of panels too, because it's sometimes it may not be the content that's being shared at the time, but understanding who those leaders are, right? Like, okay, this is a person I want to connect with because we share a similar, interest in this area, and I'm gonna have questions about this later on. So like making that connection, building that bridge is a huge deal. So obviously, like the NACE convention is a great place to do that. But any of these, gaming conventions, esports conventions are always a great place to do it. At NACE, you also were a finalist for Support Staff of the Year, and Syracuse took home Emerging Program of the Year as well. What talk to us about obviously being nominated and then being part of the crew that helped build what you're doing there. As far as Syracuse Esports.
Yeah, I think Emerging Program, we were really lucky that was an award this year because it kind of literally lined up perfectly. If we started maybe a year earlier, I think we might have been handing that trophy over to Chris Bilski from Michigan State. But I think we're really lucky that we were able to do a lot in the last 6 months, and just lucky that no one else was in a similar position to us. And so we're happy we have that trophy. It's in our office. And yeah, it's always cool to be nominated for an award. I think like I had one of the most stacked categories ever. I know we had at least one of the other chatters in here in that finalist list as well. So I think that's kind of cool that if like I looked at the category I was nominated for and I'm like, oh, like genuinely every single one of these people could win this award and I wouldn't be upset. Like, I think that's always cool. So I guess I could say selfishly, I'm upset I didn't win the trophy, but like, at least it's like similar to like when you lose in a bracket, but you lose to the winner of the bracket. It's like, I only had good losses. Like, it's totally fine.
I like that. How do you stay up to date with trends? I mean, I think this is a question I ask everybody that works in this space because it is consistently changing. You need to be in front of it, or at least aware of it. How do you stay up to date with what is happening in this industry?
I think the easiest hack is students.
Yeah.
So us at Syracuse have an open door policy for the office space. So we probably have at least 4 to 5 students in the office almost the entirety of like 10 to 3 p.m. Every day. And so what their favorite thing to do is talk about the stuff that they're learning and their specific games. And inherently, if you have enough students coming in and out, you kind of cover like every game interest, every league interest. And so you learn a lot about it that way. I think we're all stuck with Twitter, whether you're a fan of that or whether you're not a fan of that for your professional life. But sometimes you got to mess with the algorithm to get the esports side back on or the esports side off. But you have to have a Twitter in this space and just look through it. When I instruct classes, some of my required reading used to be like Adam Antor's Twitter. Adam Antor's Discord 100% is a required tool for anyone in the space, because he will post job opportunities there. I think it is actually the most up-to-date job board that is easily accessible for students and staff. What else? Jake Lucky, I used to share a lot of his stuff. I think his goes more into a little bit more broader esport and gaming sometimes and streaming.
Content,
but a lot of it still is relevant. LinkedIn's actually pretty good. I think the algorithm there is pretty good if you connect with a lot of people in the space. And then outside of that, I do read like ESI, so Esports Insiders, kind of my news source of choice. And then I also just have Reddit because I traditionally follow a lot of these gaming avenues. So I probably subscribe to r/Smash Bros, r/League of Legends, stuff like that. And I get some news that way.
Awesome. Well, Bair, man, I want to give you a chance to tell people where they can find you, how to get in touch with you, your best means of communication, and before we end here. But go ahead. Where can people find you?
You could find me at Nakita Bair on Twitter. That I respond to DMs on there. I'm kind of more active than usual on there. I'm a big LinkedIn guy. Should just be Nakita Bair or whatever the LinkedIn user /Nakita Bair. Discord, also the exact same, at Nakita Bair. That's kind of the perk of having a pretty unique first and last name combination is you kind of just get all the usernames you want. And then in the near future, I will be commentating at Wavelength in about 2 weeks up in Massachusetts. So that's not announced yet, but catch me there. It's actually going to be like a crazy large event. I think like almost 9 or 8 out of the top 10 Melee players are going to be there. And the ultimate side of the bracket is like going crazy. So if you want to catch any commentary there, see me there. Otherwise, you can just catch me anywhere else, like Discord, Twitter. I'll be able to respond to anything. You can shoot me a follow on here. I'm probably going to start doing a little bit more Melee content and probably just some variety streaming. I'm a big Dead by Daylight streamer in my free time.
Yes, follow the Twitch channel. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here, man. I really do appreciate you being a guest on the show. My next guest will be Alyssa Duran. She's the Esports Program Director at Shenandoah University and Nakita's good pal. That will be on October 10th. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching and have a fantastic rest of your night.